This particular video is about a book which you can see in the title. It's about Gravity's Rainbow. And the thing about this book is, first of all, I was going to make maybe a small Instagram reel about it, but then when I started to list down the points that I want to talk about, it became too big for a reel. And I thought I'll just make a video about it. The interesting thing about this book that I found while just typing about this video's points is that it's not really famous on Instagram or TikTok, which I believe says more about the community of book influencers on Instagram or TikTok. And I personally have very little respect for that because they don't do justice to any of the books and they cover the most mundane sort of books. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And that is what the general opinion is from what I've talked to people as well. But regardless, this book, Gravity's Rainbow, is a pretty old classic. It's based in World War II. And the opening statement, the opening sentence of this book is very famous, which is, "A screaming comes across the sky." It's a very powerful opening. This is said to be one of the most difficult books. It's right up there with James Joyce's Ulysses, Finnegan's Wake, and Gravity's Rainbow. And this is said to be an inexhaustible book. Now, what does that mean? What does inexhaustible mean? The thing is, inexhaustible or impenetrable usually means that no matter how much you dig in, no matter how many times you read a book, reread a book, it always contains more information than you can digest. There's always something new inside. Books like Brothers Karamazov, Crime and Punishment, Anna Karenina, and Gravity's Rainbow are called inexhaustible because no matter how much you try to dig in, there's always something new waiting for you. And that's beautiful about these books because the thing is, if you go into these books while knowing the story arc exactly, you know that in Crime and Punishment the murder happens. You know in Brothers Karamazov that the father dies. You know in Anna Karenina what happens, roughly speaking. But yet you find something new because that the story, the arc of the story, what happens with the character, the gist of it is not important. What's important is the dialogue. It's the character of these. It's the interpretation of these books that is more important. That is why you read these books. That is why at least I read these books, and that is why these books are called a work of art, because the more you try to point out every detail, the more you focus on every detail, the more interpretations jump up, the more understanding jumps up. Theodor Adorno, who was a German philosopher, said it would be barbaric to write poetry after Auschwitz. This was said because there was a huge question in the literary community especially, that is it possible to make art, is it possible to make beautiful things again after the atrocities of World War II? Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow is the answer to that statement, that yes, it is still possible to make a piece of art, it is still possible to make great literature. I wanted to talk a bit about the edition that I have. This is the Penguin edition of Gravity's Rainbow, and the interesting thing about this edition is that the cover page is actually made by Frank Miller. Frank Miller sounds like a familiar name. If so, it's because he is responsible for the comic book covers of a lot of DC comics, a lot of famous comics actually. So it was very interesting to have such a beautiful cover for such a great novel. Now, I myself haven't finished this book completely. I'm actually only at the beginning. So I also wanted this video to be sort of like a message to everyone who's reading. If anyone is interested to read it with me, because it is important to have a reading partner with this book. As we'll discuss further, it is also very important to have a guide for this book. And by that, I'll go into what I mean. Now, the storyline of this book. Basically, so at the center of this novel is the German V2 rocket. Now, the V2 rocket is a successor to the V1 rocket. V1 rocket were known as the buzz bombs, which is basically they would just buzz around, or as the book says, just fart around the sky, and then suddenly drop a bomb, and you have 10 seconds to hide under the table and dodge it. So these were the V1 rockets, but then came the horrifying V2 rockets. And the dreadful thing about these rockets was that these were faster than the speed of sound. So you wouldn't hear them till they have fallen. So what would happen is that you would first get the blast, and then you'd get the sound of the rocket coming in, which was a very horrible thing because you would have no idea, and if you're anywhere near the radar, you're just gone directly with no warning. And another fact about the rockets was that they would not have any accuracy because of being so fast. That no one knows where they would fall, and which is very key to our story, our book here. So Tyrone Slothrop is a character in the book who goes around the city having some sexual liaisons with random girls, and we follow his story arc based on the view of certain scientists from a community who and these scientists have some special powers themselves. Some are some can perceive the dreams of others, while others are incredibly good at statistics and so on. And they deduce that Slothrop's erection and the V2 rockets falling have a connection in them. What happens is that a few days after Slothrop has erection or a sexual liaison, the rockets fall exactly there, which is a connection which now that we have between two. And the book goes deeper into now I haven't gotten this part exactly, but I know the story because I'm using a guide myself again, which I'll go into. The book uses this to mention that Slothrop was actually experimented upon by these similar scientists who are all Pavlovians. Now, Pavlov's theory is about classical conditioning. So now apparently they have made Slothrop's erection the causal link with the V2 rocket falling. Which is, again, the thing is, the book is incredibly dense. I can't read it without a guide. And now that we have gotten to the subject of guide, people suggest, most people who are ardent followers of pension, and most people that I talk to, from what I understand, they say that you should use a guidebook with it. And the most popular guidebook is Weisenberger's Guide to Gravity's Rainbow, and that's the one that I'm using along with a couple of other resources as well. And so these books are needed because there would be like paragraphs, there would be pages which I would just read through, and I would have zero clue of what happened. I would have no understanding of what exactly went on. But so now we go back to the storyline where Slothrop has been classically conditioned to sort of predict where the V2 rocket would be falling. And the book goes around this whole thing. And through the storyline, there are many themes, and all of them boil down to one thing, and it's the terrible nature of war itself. And that is the beautiful thing that this book covers, because the book has a lot of lewd passages as well as beautiful passages as well. And the book does not take itself seriously, even though it should, but it does not take itself too seriously as well. The book actually contains everything from fart jokes to beautiful, beautiful paragraphs, and so many inner monologues, so many interesting new characters. It's an amazing book, and I would urge that if anyone is interested to read it with me, I would like a reading partner for this so we can discuss about Slothrop's erections.